Hey everyone. Hello. It's Kelly and Jamie. We are on strategy session 3, our coffee chat with modern female entrepreneurs. And this week we're going to talk about building your social media strategy. Now this is a pretty popular topic. Everybody wants to know more about how to use social media for their business. Now, we only have an hour, so we're going to kind of dive into why you should have a social media strategy and then how to create your social media strategy. We're going to cover each platform a little bit because we can't do a deep dive into each one. We would be here all day. So what we could do for that is we can have specific sessions, like dive deep into how to create a Facebook marketing strategy, right? Or we can, another thing that I've thought of doing is even having kind of workshops, right? Where we dive into 2 or 3 social media platforms, right? So Jamie and I will kind of get some feedback from you and figure out what we're going to do from there. So we're going to try to cover as much as we can in 60 minutes because, like I said, this is a pretty important topic.
There's a lot to talk about.
There really is. And especially with 2 of us, there's a lot of input, right? So, so right away we'll jump into kind of why do you need social media strategy. 75% of companies have some sort of social media strategy. I mean, it is probably the most cost-effective marketing strategy that you can have. It takes very little investment. So, it's very critical to your growth because, as you may know, you've got to build your following. You've got to build your tribe, and social media is the best way to do that. And the other thing is, the other reason to have a strategy is every single platform is different, right? What works for Facebook isn't necessarily going to work for Instagram or Twitter or Pinterest or LinkedIn. So you want to have a very distinct strategy for each. Anything else on that, Jean?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I just wanted to kind of touch base on the importance of social media. I mean, when you think about what marketing was before social media and what it is now, it's kind of 2 very different things. So I like to think of anything when it comes to online marketing in terms of building a brand ecosystem. And up until the past, say, 7, 8 years or so, it was always based on websites. But now there's this added piece of the social media piece. And even before there were websites, it was more billboards, magazine ads, newspapers. And while all those things are still, or local advertising or word of mouth.
Direct mail, right.
Direct mail. And while all those things are still relevant, more and more brands are capturing more business off of online because more and more people are leveraging social media platforms as a way of communicating on a regular basis. The average user, when they log into Facebook, has about 1,200 stories to read, and they log in about 500 times a day. They log in about 5 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some pretty staggering numbers. And when you think about that and you think about how you can compete with, say, an Amazon, if you're a smaller business, the difference is in the social media. It's in the being able to respond and be creative and really getting that brand personality and brand voice to come alive online. So that's what I would add. And I think we're probably going to talk a little bit more, just kind of understanding how to do that and kind of the mechanics of that.
Right. And I think the first thing, with anything that we do, right, the first thing is always understanding goals, right? We've got to kind of figure out, okay, what is it that you want to achieve through social media marketing, right? So it's increasing brand awareness. Do you want to, is the purpose of this post to drive traffic to my website, right? Are you using it for customer retention, right? So I do that a lot. I have clients, and maybe we've just finished up 12-week engagement, but I want to keep them informed. I want to keep adding value. So it's great for customer retention, relationship building, whether that's, a lot of times I'll refer to lead nurturing. So it's, building relationships with potential buyers, but it's also potential collaborations, right? It's networking. It's networking with your peers. And it's great also for, kind of social research and figuring out more information about your competitors, about your ideal client. It's great for that.
Yeah, and I would also say, let's take it one step further, right? So say you met somebody at a networking event, and I'm kind of, when I used to do lots of networking events, or even when I prospect with somebody, even today, I'm kind of notorious for this. I'm a big fan of getting that person into your social media feed, right? Because they might not necessarily be ready to buy right now, or they're hesitant for some reason, whether it's, they kind of aren't quick to trust, or they're not quick to make decisions, or they're not whatever is, by getting them in that social media feed and getting them in that social media sphere, like, it just keeps you front of mind with them when they are ready. And if they're actively engaging, and even if they're not actively engaging, I will tell you, I've had people who have not liked or commented on one thing of mine, and 6 months down the road, they randomly call me and they'll say, I saw your post on X and I decided that I'm ready to go.
Well, that's it. It's a captive audience. I mean, they're sitting back and watching. They're always watching.
So it's twofold too, because you can also, I'm a big fan of getting your own clients to engage on there, right? Because if you get your clients to engage on there and they can see and like they interact, and then you have these other new people who aren't clients yet, whether it's somebody you met at a networking event, or it's a prospect that you've just met virtually, or it's somebody you don't even know. Those two feeding each other are only going to help you in terms of building trust and value and awareness.
Right. It's right. That's really easy social proof right there, right? If you've got customers that are engaging in your group with prospects, it's perfect, right? That's absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's good to have goals, but you've really got to have to quantify those goals. So when you create your goals, make sure that they're realistic and attainable. So for instance, you might say, I want to grow my Instagram followers to 1,000 by January 1, right? So now you just have to kind of break that down into smaller achievable goals.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do want to add something on that.
Yep.
When we're thinking about goals, here's one thing that I want to make sure people don't get mixed up with. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I've had people who have come to me and they have this expectation. I literally just had this happen a few weeks ago. This lady launched her website, went on social media, and after 3 days, she was pissed because she hadn't gotten one sale. And I don't know where she got that idea from. I'm assuming she saw some overnight internet sensation online, because I had explained to her that it takes time and it doesn't happen overnight and there'll be some work involved. But she was pissed because she didn't sell anything like day 3. And it's like, Google hasn't even optimized your site and you have 3 followers on Facebook. So I don't know how you expect those 3 people are going to buy 2, one of which is me and the other one's you.
Right.
Right. So I think the important thing is when you start thinking about social media, you really have to start to think that this is getting people into that ecosystem. I've had people who we've gone online the first day and they have gotten a sale, but that's just pure luck, right? That's not generally what happens.
Right.
But on the other hand, most people start to see results within 3 to 6 months, but you also can't just place, I'll be the first to say this, and social media is a big part of my business, but it's also business strategy is a big part of my business as well. You can't just solely rely on social media. No. It's a mix, right? So when you're setting these goals, have them be realistic and understand that you might have to do some networking. You're probably going to have some people have some real conversations with people, because those people like the Tony Robbins of the world that launch a product and sell millions also have millions of followers.
Right.
You know, so I think it's very important when you're thinking about goals, think about what is realistic for you. And like Kelly said, if you want to get to 1,000 Instagram followers, make that number attainable by each week, but also figure out what you can do to help move those 1,000 followers along down your sales funnel or your sales pipeline, or move them where you want to move them into the brand ecosystem. Is it you want to send them to your website, right? And I know this is a little bit more than just social media, but I feel like it's relevant to bring to the table.
No, absolutely. I mean, that's with any marketing goal that we have, right? So for me, I'll look at, my goal is to grow my list, right? And quality, this is more, when you say you want to grow, use the example, okay, I want 1,000 followers, right? That's great. How many of those are actually your ideal client?
Yeah.
Right? So I'm big on, so I don't want to come across as it's all numbers. And yes, it is a numbers game. It always is. But I would much rather have really quality leads, than 1,000 that are never going to buy from me.
Yeah.
Right?
And one fun test that I do on Instagram to do that, I actually had a gentleman who left me as a client, I don't know, 6 months ago, and then came back to me about a month ago because same exact thing. He was like, oh, these followers are crap, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, we have 500 real followers.
Right.
He had hired somebody else. Now they have like 10,000 followers and only 500 of them are real followers. Like right. The rest are not their demographic. And so one of the things that I like to do as a test to see if your followers are engaged and see if they're good on Instagram is don't put any hashtags. That way you can see how many people are actually seeing the post
right.
in your newsfeed, and you can also see who's engaged. So you might not just wait an hour before you put the hashtags on, or
right.
2 hours or whatever, but that's a great test to see who in that community is engaged.
Right. No, that's a good point. What the goal that I set for myself is always 100 new leads a month. And I say leads, I mean, I would say, 100 people added to my list. And then I break it down. And when you break it down, it's okay, that's 3 people a day.
It's not that many.
I only have to add 3 people a day. And honestly, if I don't hit it one day, I don't really care. But it's good to have that number there so that you can quantify kind of how you're doing, right? So we talked about the quality of your leads. And we say this all the time, and I won't go into it in depth. I mean, we'll probably do another session on this specifically, but knowing your ideal client, right? That's key to any social media. It's key to any marketing strategy. But, when you want to look at, who's following you, are they even your ideal client? Because that can also give you some information about, all right, do I have to shift, or can I create a specific program? Because you don't have to have one ideal client, right? You can have several. I always say that your ideal client, so you've got your buyer persona, and this is, who you want to work with. And that person is willing to pay you $400 a month for your services, right? Your ideal client is willing to pay you $800. That's, that puts it in perspective. That's who you really, really want to work with. It's a person that not only do they fit all the demographic information, but they're going to show up, right? They're not going to be canceling appointments, right? This is your kind of perfect ideal client to work with. So hopefully you have a buyer persona or an ideal client profile. And if you don't, we've got plenty of information that can kind of take you through that. But you want to find out, where are they hanging out? So if they're not active on Twitter, there's really no reason for you to be on Twitter unless you're using it for something else. But what are they liking? What makes them engage? When do they start to interact on social media? And a big thing is too, where are they located, right? If you run some analytics, I mean, one thing I didn't realize is I have a lot of UK followers, right? So, that can kind of give you some insight too, because I get a lot of questions about, you can see like the stuff on my floor over there as this starts to fall. You can see when you should be posting, right? So if you know kind of where your followers are located, who's following you, that can kind of give you some insight of, when you should post on social media.
Yeah. And I think to your point, I have a lot of folks who come to me and say, I have Facebook, Twitter, Google Plus, Pinterest, blah, 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 blah. And they go on and they're on every platform, like platforms, some of them I've never even heard of. And I feel like I'm pretty dialed into the social media world. Like, okay. So how do you plan to manage all that?
Right.
Because every one of those platforms has a different set of demographics, which means you probably could post the same content, but probably not.
Right.
So I'm a big believer, pick 2 networks and own those networks.
Right.
Don't even think about doing more than that. And
Right.
the reason why is because you're going to spread yourself so thin, and here's the thing, like, I'm a big fan of Pinterest personally, but to make Pinterest successful for business, you have to pin like 100 pins a day. I don't have that kind of time. Do you?
Right. I mean, that's a good point. It's a good segue into what we're going to start kind of breaking down each of the platforms. And, Pinterest is a great example, right? I love Pinterest for business, but I have not been focusing on it, right? I needed to focus on Facebook and Instagram. So you want to focus on a couple and get really, really good at it. Now, my strategy over the next couple of months is to kind of build out my Pinterest. The thing about Pinterest is it's slow. Okay. It's great for let me take a step back. Pinterest is mainly female users, right? So if that's your target market, then it's great for that, for you. The other thing is it's great. It's easy to share content, right? It's easy. You post a blog, it's easy to get those pins. The thing is, it doesn't happen overnight. It's not like other social media platforms where, you post and people immediately interact. It doesn't happen like that. Right. Yeah.
Well, and I think that from my experience, I think to really see the impact, you have to spend a lot of time there, right? And if you don't have the time, you can't necessarily.
Right. I have to, because I used to use Pinterest a lot, especially because I used to have an interior design business with a friend of mine. And so it was great for that. Right. So I have a lot of my clients are health coaches. Pinterest would be great for them. I usually don't start my clients out with Pinterest though, because as Jamie said, it's a lot of work, right? And, but it's great for posting how-tos, recipes, things like that. I think that you do have to, because many of us, right, we all had our own personal Pinterest, and that's one of the reasons that I've kind of stepped away from it a little bit. So especially when I was a stay-at-home mom, or people that are getting married, or, I used it a lot when I was, when I bought my house. But so now it's such a highly personal thing that I have to kind of redo my whole Pinterest. And I just haven't wanted to tackle that. But I do think Pinterest is a great platform for generating business, but it is slow. So it's not necessarily one that I would start out with. Like you said, I'm just now kind of tackling my Pinterest.
Yeah, I think to your point, Kelly, I think it's also, you have to figure out where your community is going to be too. Like, you have a community on Facebook and you have a community on Instagram, and you're building those, and you have a good rhythm with those, and you have a plan in place for those. And so that's when you can start to extend into the other networks. But and your business is about a year old, right?
Not even,
yeah. So it's taken some time for you to really get into that groove of being able to get content organized and kind of have a schedule and all of that sort of stuff. And I think the thing is, a lot of people want to jump in and they want to hop on like Snapchat and this and that and the other, and it's very easy to get shiny object syndrome when it comes to social media. But the problem with doing that is that you're going to spread yourself so thin that you're going to be in this constant kind of struggle, right? That you're like, oh my God, I got to post something on Instagram. Oh my God, I got to post something on Facebook. And I'm a big believer. I'd rather have you do one post a day on one network and be consistent than do one post here and one post there and one post there. Because especially with like a platform like Instagram, where I notice if I don't post every day, I literally lose followers.
Right. Well, that's a good, so let's jump into Instagram, because I think Instagram is really great for building your organic following, right? Yeah. So, Instagram is, and this is why, we kind of talked about why we need a strategy, because what you post on Instagram is going to look very different than what you post on Facebook. Instagram is very visual content, right? Started out, with a lot of creative folks, photographers, love Instagram. It's very image focused. I used to put a lot of text over my images. I don't do that anymore. I've actually started removing text, because people will look at your entire grid and say, okay, it's truly a representation of your brand personality, right? People I know I do it. I look at someone's Instagram and I instantly get a feel for, who they are as a brand. So you might not want to put in, because it's not as easy for people to kind of steal your images. Like, that's one thing that I have a friend of mine that she's a health coach, and she posted this great picture of something she kind of did with her kids. And, she created like cars and stuff like that with vegetables, right? It's like really cute. It has been shared so many times by David Wolf, and she didn't have any link to her website, nothing, right? She had posted on Facebook. It's been shared so many times, and that's a huge lost opportunity there, that somebody would potentially click on her link, right? They just copied and pasted her image. But on Instagram, you don't have to really worry about that. So I've started kind of removing text.
I would disagree with that, Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I would disagree with that is because you can just screenshot. I've had other clients who've just had people screenshot it and steal.
Yeah.
Because it's on Facebook, it's actually easier to share.
Right.
But on Instagram, you actually have to screenshot it. And with the new zoom, like how you can zoom in on images now on Instagram, I would still caution people the same on Instagram, just so you're aware.
Yeah.
We can talk about things that you can do with that.
I do, like, any images that I buy or my personal images, I'll put my website on it.
Watermark it too.
Yes. If it's a free stock image, I don't really care, So that's a good point. The other thing about the one con for Instagram is you can only have one clickable link. And so you'll see a lot of times that people will say, link in bio, right? So that's kind of one of the, downsides. So if you sell, like for me, I sell multiple things, right? So I have my one-on-one coaching, I have my e-course, I have the business breakthrough guide. A lot of times I want to share blog posts, but I have to put that link in the bio. Is there, another way around that?
No, there's no way around that. I have done things with clients where, we create a custom Bitly link. So basically you could put Bitly, and then / whatever the name of your program is, or something memorable, so that people could just kind of, type that in, because you can't even copy paste on Instagram, and they do that so people can't steal.
Right.
So while I think that that's great, I think it's something that is definitely the thing. Instagram's great for
building
it's a
brand.
downside to Instagram, but let's face it, right? So let's talk about the positives though, because there's a lot of positives on Instagram, right? And one of those is that it's still like the wild, wild west on Instagram in terms of being able to find people. There's no organic reach. Like for Facebook, you basically have to pay to play these days, right? Unless you have a very engaged audience.
Mm-hmm.
Instagram is not like that. You throw hashtags in there, which are basically think search terms. And you can get your image found hundreds of times.
Right.
So I think that's a positive for it. I think, like Kelly said, you can really do a great job in terms of telling a story with Instagram through photos. The Instagram stories that they have now are a really great way, because I've had a lot of people say, oh, I want to hop on Snapchat. You know, Snapchat is for 25 and under, to be honest. And who really wants to spend the time building a whole nother following on another platform? I know I don't, because it takes so much work to build that following in the first place. So I think the thing with the Instagram stories, it's also something that you can do from a visual perspective. Like I could Instagram something right now, and it's not going to mess up the way that my visual feed looks.
Right.
You know, and it also can kind of give that a little bit more of that personality, because it's a video. You're bringing something to life through the video. And while you can do that in your squares, you don't want to mess up the look.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think and that's a good point, because I'm actually going to take a picture right now and because I want to show a point. One thing that, actually I should probably do it like this, right? Did that work? I don't know. Okay. Anyway, whatever. So what Instagram is really good at is increasing brand awareness, right? So if you're just getting started out, if you don't have a website yet, Instagram is great for increasing brand awareness.
Yeah.
And Jamie kind of was talking about, it's great for behind the scenes, right? So you want to post some behind the scenes stuff, right? I'm getting ready to hop on this, webinar, right? I have a client who has a ribbon cutting, coming up for her business. And so I said, okay, click some pictures, put them on Instagram, kind of some behind the scenes. I have another client that did a TV appearance, right? I said, get behind the scenes information. People love, pictures. People love that stuff.
They do.
Because it really does, as Jamie said, it's kind of the storyboard of your brand, right? So we talked about, Facebook, let's talk about Facebook. Because I think that's probably the one that everybody is on, right? It's basically, it's like your landing page for your business. I think that's the other social media platform that if you don't have a website yet, Facebook is absolutely a great place to start. And everybody's on it, right? I mean, I forget how many people are on it, 2 million people or something like that. It might even be.
There's a lot.
It's great for building your network and your following. You can, as Jamie said, it is pay to play though, right? That's the tough thing about Facebook. But, because you've got to kind of cut through that noise. And I kind of made up that number, 2 million. I don't know if that's right or not. So don't check me on it. I feel like it's 2 million. But if that's the case, you've got to cut through all that noise. And how do you do it? Now it's pay to play, right? So it's Facebook ads, it's boosting posts, but it doesn't have to be very expensive, right? So you can do that for $5 a day. I'm not necessarily going to talk about that here because I'm not a Facebook ads expert. All
I'll say is you could spend $30 a month on Facebook ads and you can make a difference. I'm a big fan. If you don't have a big budget, put $30 or $50 aside for the whole month.
Right.
Boost every post that you do for $1 and then spend the other $20 on getting new likes.
Good point.
But you don't need a ton of money on that. And we can talk more. We could literally spend hours talking about Facebook ads because it's so creepy what you can do. I ran an ad a couple weeks ago that was targeted towards moms with kids aged 5 to 9 with a household annual income of over $125,000 that were interested in sports. Like you can get uber specific. I could even go down to the type of car that Kelly drives and run an ad to her. Facebook knows all that data. So You can get really creepy with those, and it can be really useful. And once you get the ads that work well for you, they're easy to repurpose.
Right.
So get
Right.
that conversion going. You can just tweak, and you're good.
Right. And the types of things you want to post on Facebook. Facebook's great for informative content, right? So, links to your blogs, links to sales pages. Another benefit. So one of the big differences than Instagram that we kind of talked about is clickable links, right? You can include multiple links in one post, right? And I do that often. You can get really long with Facebook. So I wouldn't suggest every post being really long. I try to tell my clients, and what I try to do is switch it up. So I'll have, kind of some short posts, but then I'll do some really long, ones, and it increases engagement. I'm a big fan of, and Jamie might feel differently, I'm a big fan of always including an image with my post, because people are very much drawn to images. They're more likely to click on a post that has an image than just some text.
I agree. I also think, being mindful of the fact that most people look at Facebook on their phones. So keeping it short where you don't have to hit that see more button to open up the post is really, really important. I had a client where she had changed her postings and they were much longer, and her engagement dropped over almost 1,000%.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because most of her people are on mobile and they would have to hit that see more button. So I think it's important to actually look at the data and see, so cross-reference your creative, what you're creating, with the data, right? And I agree with you though, Kelly. I think it's good to have a mix. I don't think you can go all short or all long. I also think it's good to ask questions like fill in the blank, like my favorite thing to do on the weekend is, or, which do you prefer, A, B, or C? And I think the other big thing to talk about on Facebook, and excuse me, because I'm going to put my glasses on because I can't read this over here. I knew this would come up today, is video. So I have my Adobe marketing report that says by 2018, almost 86% of posts on Facebook will be video.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that mean for the average person? That's something to kind of start to consider and figure out, especially with the new Facebook Live, how you can actually, like, I could broadcast what Kelly and I are doing right now on Facebook Live, and people will be able to hop on and see what we're doing in real time. So I think it's one of those things where it's so important to understand like where things are going and to be able to embrace that, because I do notice my clients who do embrace video have a tendency to get more engagement organically without doing anything extra. So that's something that I've been really pushing for a lot of my clients, and it's not something I can do for them. It's not something Kelly can do for her clients. Like, you have to kind of do the videos yourself, and you have to really kind of get comfortable with being on camera. And I'm not super comfortable with being on camera. I was telling Kelly before, I washed my hair yesterday. I forgot to wash the conditioner out and couldn't figure out why my hair was so greasy. It's just reality as a mompreneur. Sometimes it happens. It was like 5 o'clock in the morning when I showered. So things happen. You forget. But I also think that's part of what makes it authentic. Like, Kelly and I aren't perfect. I'm like looking at the camera, watching my double.
Talk about you know what? You're only referring to yourself, Jamie. I'm absolutely perfect. No.
But I think it's okay. Like, I think that's the thing that's really a differentiator. That's going to be a differentiator for small brands.
Right.
Because when I hop on and I can show my personality, and somebody says either I like her and I love what she's saying and I agree, or I don't like her, I don't care. Good. Unlike my page.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. No, I think it's a good point. I think that, you've got to look, if it doesn't fit you, it's got to be authentic, right? So if it doesn't fit you at all, don't do it. Right. So don't just hop on there for the sake of hopping on there. Jamie was talking about getting comfortable with it. I can tell you, I'm so uncomfortable with video, and I'm more comfortable in this aspect. But kind of jumping on there by myself, I I get too focused, especially for Facebook Live right now, the way it is, I get too focused on what I'm looking like, and, you know, is my wonky eye showing, you know, do I look like I just won a prize fight? Like, it's just, you know, I get very caught up in that. But I can tell you, jump on, the more you do it, the more comfortable you get. You know, it can be very useful for, if you want to have like a topic of the day with your client, you know, your leads. If you're somebody who maybe wants to, you know, I've got a lot of health coach clients, right? So it could be a demonstration. Maybe it's a cooking demonstration, right? It's great, again, for the kind of behind the scenes stuff. My sister, who's a publicist, just had an event in Boston. And so she was doing, you know, Facebook Live, and I was texting her, you know, I texted her at the time, and I'm like, ask people what, you know, she was at a brunch battle it was a brunch battle for all of many of the restaurants in Boston. And I said, ask people what their favorite favorite thing about brunch is, right? So I was kind of telling her what to do, and it was great because it got people engaged, and then people that are watching are answering the questions. So it's good for that. It's good for the behind the scenes. It's good for kind of an open Q&A, right? I've got a few clients that are great, you know, at Facebook Live. So if it feels good for you, do it. If it doesn't, that's fine, because you don't want to come across as super uncomfortable, right? Because people are going to get that.
Yeah,
right?
and here's the other thing. Like, it's never going to feel comfortable. I mean, I still, this is our third week, and I still come on here and I'm like, does my hair look okay? Like, the more you do it, the easier it'll get. It'll never be super easy unless you decide to be a Today Show anchor where you're on TV every day.
Right.
And even then, I mean, I'm sure those people have anxiety. They also have a team of hair and makeup people that make them look perfect. And I would contend personally that it's actually okay that you don't look perfect, because you know, unless that's part of your brand. And if that's part of your brand, you're probably not on this call with Kelly and I, to be honest. If perfection is part of your brand, you're not going to work with Kelly or I, unfortunately. We're just not, we're real, we're authentic. We're going to tell you it how it is. And I think it's okay. Like, I've done Facebook Live when I've been out for a walk with my son. And it was one of those things where it was the day that Instagram stories came out, and it was literally the only time I had to jump on, and I was getting so many questions about it. And it was cool. Like, I actually got a lot of good feedback from it, because people were like, hey, like, I got to see Newport and you gave me information. And I'm sure some people hated it, and I know some people loved it, but the people that hated those aren't my people anyway. So right. I would contend it's okay. Like, it was me, real, behind the scenes. And I really believe, like, exercise is a very important part of what I do, because if I don't exercise, I get a little crazy.
Right. And I think we could dive into a whole kind of how-to with Facebook Live. Like, there are definite like tricks, and but we won't get into it today. I mean, I'll just say one of the things with Facebook Live is if you want it to get shared, you've got to keep it interesting, right? You've got to kind of move around a little bit.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be
right.
It's not meant to be studio quality, no. Right? It's not meant to be, and I think a lot of people get hung up on that. But I could go on, and you
right. Well, so and kind of back to, you know, what do you post on Facebook? You know, it's also, you know, great for not so much what do you post, but, you know, for Facebook, it's great for events too, right? So Facebook is great for if you're going to have, you know, host a networking event. If you're going to, like I said, I've got a client who has a ribbon cutting, right? So she created a Facebook event, you know, things like that. So Facebook isn't going anywhere. Like Jamie said, people are logging in 5 times a day. I mean, it's definitely where you want to be. I'm going to talk really quick about Twitter, okay? Not a lot of people, I don't think, are on Twitter. But I will say, if you are one of those people, so I use Twitter. My ideal client might not necessarily be on Twitter, but it's great for building relationships with media, right? So it's very news focused. So you want to make sure people are going on Twitter because they want to know what's going on in my industry, right? What's new? It's basically like it's a news feed, right? So that's where I get my news. I go to Twitter, right? So I don't go to Facebook, right? And it's memes and it's made up and it's hoaxy, right? I go to Twitter. Not that there isn't hoaxy stuff on Twitter, but that's where I'm going to get real-time information about news in my industry. So the other good thing, it's very rapid fire content, right? So you can post to Twitter 20 times a day, right? It's very quick. The other good thing, it's got extensive research capability, and it's very easy to jump into a conversation. So if you think of it like a cocktail party, right? And there's two people having a conversation about a topic, it's kind of weird to do that on, some other social media platforms, but it's very easy in Twitter to kind of jump into that conversation because it's just so common. It's a very friendly platform in that respect. And one of the things that I like to do is, Twitter's probably the first thing that I kind of log into in the morning because I want to see what's going on in my industry. And it's a great way to, you retweet that, you want to add a comment because people really care about what's happening right now. Right. And so that's what I use Twitter for. And I'll teach a lot of my clients. I was
trying to look, sorry for the background. I was trying to look something up real quick on my Adobe report. And one thing that I will say, I'm not a huge Twitter user because you have to be so rapid fire on it. I don't have a tendency. I'm pretty quick in responding, but Twitter's just a little too fast for me in terms of how fast you have to respond. But I will say I've talked to some pretty amazing famous people on Twitter.
Oh yeah.
I've also had my tweets put on TV when I do tweet. So I think it's a great resource for people, especially in niche industries. I'm
in the coaching industry, and a perfect example is Gary Vaynerchuk, who I follow, right? VaynerMedia.
Yep.
And he just tweeted something out, what's your favorite coffee? It was very random, and I don't usually, that wouldn't be something I would normally engage in, but I love coffee. And so I said, I run on Dunks. I was trying to be funny. I said, I run on Dunks because I'm from Boston. And he actually we went to the same college, not at the same time. So I said, I run on Dunks. And he said, okay, where are you going to be tomorrow, before like 2:00? And I thought, well, this is kind of weird. Like, did his account get hacked?
Yeah.
And so I told him, and his assistant reached out, asked for my address. I thought, this is really strange. No lie, the next day, knock on my door. And it was for social media day, right? I knock on my door. They said, here's a coffee on Gary Vaynerchuk. Like, I thought that was amazing.
So
use
cool.
Of Twitter.
Yeah. Yeah. So Twitter is great for stuff like that. Like I said, I've had one client that's had a lot of success on there. He's a male PGA golfer, but Twitter tends to be more male. I think it's like 60-40. I was looking for the exact numbers because they've changed recently. It's skewed a little bit more evenly, but last look it was about 60-40. But I think it's great for that. I think it's great for engaging in that way. And again, the more you can kind of rapid fire with that, like I look at Kelly's tweets sometimes and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know how she does that.
Well, and it's, I get a lot of famous people that retweet me and I get so excited. Like it's just, and the thing is when you do that, you get exposure to all of their followers. And that's kind of the goal that you want, right? And it's 80. Another thing to keep in mind, it's highly mobile. Most people are not on their laptop checking Twitter. It's like 80% mobile users. So something else to kind of keep in mind. But again, I try to tell my clients, especially if you're somebody who you want to get exposure in the media, right? So from a publicity standpoint, I think it's great for building those relationships. Like you're not going to, all right, I'm following, I'm trying to think of somebody right now. Like for some reason, Maria Menounos is the only person popping in my head. But, you're not going to all of a sudden pitch, right? It's building relationships. It's a little slow, right? But it's building that relationship. I had, oh gosh, what is her name? That's terrible because I follow her and I love her. Carrie Conley, I think. and I commented, I was watching her newscast. And so live, I commented on her jewelry, her earrings. And so she tweeted me back. So now that's, that wouldn't normally happen anywhere else.
Well, it's so to your point though, right? So another application for Twitter, and I have I have a water cooperative client in Illinois, and one of the things that they leverage Twitter for is strictly for customer service.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's a great customer service tool. And I know we're running out of time. I don't want to go too crazy
Right.
with that, but Twitter is probably one of the best customer service tools that you can leverage, because like my husband literally has a Twitter account to deal with customer service issues. Like if we have trouble with our Cox communications or our electric bill or whatever. And it's something that you can get, like Kelly said, real-time data and real-time updates, because there's somebody sitting on the other end, like we have Narragansett Electric here. And there's somebody literally sitting on the other end of Narragansett Electric, and they're waiting to respond to your tweets.
Right.
And it's not just utilities, like there's Zappos is on there doing the exact same thing. And so it's a great way to interact in terms of being a great use of social media for customer service. And even Facebook's getting more that way, and we can talk about that at another time. But also don't forget that social media is not just an engagement tool, it's also a tool to serve your clients better that you already have.
Right, absolutely. One thing I wanted to mention is, how do you create the content, for your social media platforms? One thing I wanted to mention was I'm a big user of Canva. So even though, my posts are slightly different across the different platforms, they are cohesive with my brand. I create templates in Canva for my social media. And the other nice thing is, because you have to, each platform requires a different size image. So you want to make sure that you know what that is. There's plenty of resources out on the internet. So the nice thing about Canva is they already have those pre-sized templates. And the other thing is, if you create, like for instance, I created a Facebook event cover for one of my clients, but then you can magically resize it to, a, social media post. So, and you just have to kind of adjust it a little bit, but you're not starting from scratch. So I like, again, it just kind of keeps that visual branding going, because again, it's all about telling your brand story, right? So if Canva is very easy to use, and I think I did put on, one of our future sessions will be kind of how to use Canva, right? For your business. So we'll get into that a little bit deeper, but it's pretty easy. So the other thing is, I think if you do Canva for work, I think it's like $12.95 a month. I like it because
so you can only use that resize feature unless you have Canva for work.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, it's only for Canva.
Well, I think it's so big, it's so
it's worth the $12.95 to
it is so critical to it's so critical to my business, because like I have my brand colors in there. It saves me so much time. So then if I want to build a new template, it automatically pulls my brand colors. So so I would say, that to me, I'm big on operating very kind of slim with my business, right? And my expenses. So operate very lean. But Canva for work is one that I believe in investing in. So kind of talking to that, other tools to use for social media. There's Hootsuite. I have Hootsuite, but I haven't been good at using it. I think Jamie uses Hootsuite
religiously.
My sister uses it because she manages several social media accounts for her clients, right? So
even if you manage several for yourself, right? We didn't talk about this at all. One of the beautiful things about Hootsuite is there are optimal times that you should be sending out on every single network, and it's different times on different days. And if you're like me, that I try to be on a weekly basis and write content for a week at a time, You can just go in one time, schedule it all out, and you're good to go for the week, other than hitting publish on the Instagram stuff, because they don't publish the Instagram stuff for you. It's against the terms and conditions of or the user agreement for Hootsuite. But to me, it's so much easier that you don't have to think about it.
Right. And so in Hootsuite there's a couple options. There's a free option, and then there's
So you can't use the free option with Instagram, I don't believe, anymore.
Okay.
Really cheap. It's $9.99 a month. If you pay for the whole year, it's $100 for the year. And I think that's up to 20 social media profiles. So you could even put like your LinkedIn in there. If you had a business and a personal Twitter, you could kind of throw everything in there. And you can also manage the groups. So if you have a Facebook group, you can manage the group in there. It's really easy to use. You can even plug your WordPress in there, and it kind of pulls all the statistics together too. So you can kind of see what's working and what's not working. And I like it, and I could go on and on and on about it. But yeah,
and there's others. There's others besides Hootsuite. There's Buffer, right?
Tons of others besides Hootsuite. There's Rignite. There's Sprout Social. There's Edgar. There's Buffer. So there's a lot of different options out there. As far as I know, I haven't done a big check in a while. The only one that offers the Instagram scheduling, which actually just pushes to the Hootsuite app on your phone, and then you hit publish, or like set up, copy, next, publish, or whatever it is. Hootsuite is the only one that does Instagram. All the other ones do not. So you'd still have to do that in real time, manually. So you'd have to have like a Dropbox and the Google Sheets or whatever set up on your phone, so you could copy it, or you'd have to it's kind of a pain. But yeah, I think for user easeability, Hootsuite's probably the easiest. A lot of people like Sprout Social. I use Sprout Social for a long time, but they're really expensive. They're like $100 a month, and they don't support Instagram. So to me, that was kind of a kicker.
Right. No, definitely. There's other tools you can use that I'm not as familiar with, right? But if you're on there's for Instagram, there's Planoly, right, where you can kind of plan your grid, and again, that's $10 a month. And I firmly believe in operating lean in your business, but if that's one that you can check out. The other one is Iconosquare, which I think is more analysis for Instagram.
Yeah, it is. However, if you have a business Instagram, you don't need that anymore.
Right.
All the insights. So that's
good. And then I've heard of Tailwind for Pinterest. I haven't tried it yet. A lot of times I'll do the free trials to check these out.
I believe Buffer does Pinterest now too.
Right. And it's all the analytics, right? So,
business, if you have Pinterest for business, it gives you the analytics.
Right. Exactly. What else? Are there any other tools that you can think
there's
of?
Tons of tools out there.
Right. But ones that maybe people might want to check out.
No, for me, I would say the big three that I use on a regular basis is Google Drive for creating content. I have my social calendar in there that I have with all the days in it, put everything in there. Actually 4. So I have Google Drive for the writing of the content. I link all the images to Dropbox where the images live. And then Hootsuite, and then Canva.
Right. Yeah. And the other, and I'll plug this real quick. So Jamie and I have the Business Breakthrough Guide, which has a lot of planning tools, our own planning tools in it, right? So, because it's all about building your strategy for 90 days. So it kind of takes you week by week through different topics. But there's great workbooks in there for kind of building out, your strategy and your content. And so I just wanted to kind of, let you know about that. And it's right now it's $29. So, which is, if you knew how much work went into it, that's an absolute steal. Yeah. But one of the reasons that we did it was because we knew that folks needed it, right? They needed these resources. They needed a one-stop shop, a central repository of kind of all of this information. So, So check that out. So just a couple of, because we're wrapping up now, a couple of quick kind of takeaway tips in general. That's, by the way, that noise is my chair. Quick, just in case anybody's
wondering.
Yeah, in case you're wondering. Quick tips. We've kind of talked about it. So it's engage, right? So it's more than just posting on social media, right? Kind of Jamie talked about it a little bit earlier. People will post and say, well, wait a minute, nobody's doing anything, and you've got to engage back. You've got to, follow, similar people. See what, when you're looking at your competition, look at kind of what are their followers engaging in, right? What kinds of posts are they liking? And I'm not saying go and copy them, right? But you're getting kind of that social research on what's going on with the competition, and then kind of figure out what you want to do a little bit differently, right? But you've got to engage, whether you're engaging in Facebook groups, whether you're, engaging, commenting on other people's Instagram profiles.
Be part of it. I would just say be part of the community. If you want to create community, you need to be part of it.
Right. No, absolutely. It takes some time. Like I probably do it a couple of times a week. I'll go through, especially, my Instagram, I'll go through and I'll start looking for, I typically look for, Instagrams that kind of have a similar look and feel to me, whether or not they're in my industry, right? That doesn't matter. It's, do they have a similar look and feel? Because again, that kind of represents your brand personality. So I kind of already know, are we similar, right? So that's kind of the strategy that I use. You want to interact with the people that are liking, your photos and your posts.
Yeah. And I would say the more it doesn't matter whether it's Instagram or Facebook or whatever, right. I think the more you interact, the more you're going to continue. And we'll talk about a brand ecosystem more later on down the road. But the more you're interacting, the more you're building that ecosystem, and the more that you're going to take those people and start to build relationships. Because when somebody buys from you, it's not, ultimately that's what we want. We all want more people to buy from us. Is you're building a relationship, and somebody's not going to buy from somebody that they don't really like, or that doesn't respond to a comment that they left. So right. Remember that when you're doing social media, and most people who do social media for you will not comment for you, because it really needs to be from you.
Right. You've got to, the other thing is, collaborate. Right. So, similar to Jamie and I, right, you want to collaborate on social media. So, look for, collaborations, tag people. I mean, don't just tag people randomly, right? Make sure that it makes sense, because you're kind of tapping into, so when Jamie and I collaborate on things and we tag each other, you're exposed to that many more kind of followers, right? So I would say engage, collaborate. And the other thing is, go ahead.
I was just going to say, find somebody that works to your strengths.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Because Kelly and I are kind of opposites in a lot of ways. We're very similar, but in terms of our styles, but our strengths are very different.
Right.
So it works well together. And I think the last thing you're going to say is consistency, right?
Right. Absolutely. Consistency. Yeah. Be consistent. People will ask, how many times a day should I post? But Jamie said, you know what, even if you just do once a day,
it's better than nothing.
Right. It's better than nothing. Commit to once a day. I think, ideally you're posting maybe 3 times a day. Right. So, and again, that depends on the platform. So, but again, if you can just commit to once a day, I think that's great.
Great.
Cool. Was there anything else?
Sorry, my 11 o'clock call.
Oh, okay. We will, I guess that's our alarm. So, okay. All right. So we tried to cover everything. Again, we'll dive deep into each one. If you have any questions, let us know. And
yeah, we'll get this recording up online for you guys to see too.
Exactly. Yes. So have a great day.
All right.
Bye now.